Blue button. Yes. Hello. Can you? Is everyone there? Can you hear me? Let me know if you can hear me. No, I can. Ella, it's fine. I for some once again, they're just the trouble with it. The trouble with the tech getting reasonably sophisticated is that more updates happen which screw everything up. So this time, for whatever reason, my am I coming through nice and loudly, or am I? What's the sound levels like? Is it all right? It looks all right from where I'm sat, but it's kind of hard to tell. Let me just check my decibels. Let me just go down to 0.5 there. How's that? Is that still nice and clear? You can hear. Nice, lovely, lovely, lovely. Got sound. You can hear me. Marvellous. Right, let me close all these blinking settings then. Close. For some reason, my Yeti keeps resetting itself and being very grumpy. But I think possibly it's a good thing, because it might mean that I've stopped it from doing the thing where it randomly gets louder and quieter. But who knows? We'll never know, because you're all here to talk about, with me, ask questions about the West Yorkshire mass transit system, which I'm excited about. It's a good report. It came out. When did it come out? It came out a while ago, didn't it? Hi Matt. Hi Sarah. Hi Lewis. Ryan. David. Simon. Lee. Richard. Everyone's here. Donald. Graham. Marvellous. There's loads of you here, which is excellent. Hello everyone. Well, let's get my stupid big face up. Hello. Hello everyone. Hello. I've got tea. There's tea. I've got an increasingly heavy, hairy head. And I've also got a plate over there which had 5 Jaffa cakes on it and now doesn't. Yes. Anyway, yeah, this episode's going to be it's going to be all about Leeds. This is the 50th episode. Yeah, good work, Ryan Hogg. This is the 50th episode of Rail Natter. Make of that what you will. I don't know how we've managed it. Crikey. So let's do this thing. Right. First of all, the news. Let's see what's in the news. First of all, the Green Party. There's been somewhat of overplay. It's not a split so much as the fact that the HS2 for Greens have kind of gone public. They've launched a website. They've listed off all of their kind of the leaders in the within the party who've got involved, but they represent a lot of people are saying, there's only a few of them on the website, but they represent a much larger group of people who are dissatisfied with Green Party transport policy, mainly because there isn't one. It doesn't exist. There is no transport policy in terms of the Greens. It's totally incoherent. So that's basically what this group has appeared. You can go and have a look at what they're up to on hs2.green. Nice little URL there. Go and see what they're up to. In any case, that has happened in the news, and I wrote about it on Medium, so you can go and find that as well, which has annoyed quite a few Greens for various reasons. In any case, yeah, that's fun. Go and read it. There's discourse on Twitter about it, so that'll all be fun. Right, next. Yes, this is a thing that's happened recently within Network Rail. Annoyingly, I couldn't find a nice picture of some softwood timbers on my own collection. Not that it was high enough resolution anyway. Softwood sleepers in the UK have reached the end of the line. That's it. They're done. They're, as of, I think, July this year, that'll be the end of them. They're being replaced by Psycut. I think it's Psycut, isn't it? That's they're replacing them with these, which are what I call park bench sleepers. In that they're kind of the material. They're quite light, but they basically behave like timber sleepers. But they are, shall we say, they're plastic. They're entirely created from recycled material, and they can be 100% recycled afterwards as well. They stand up and survive quite a lot better than softwood timber sleepers, and more importantly, they don't need creosote, which is a horrible toxic thing to dump on the track. So it doesn't mean that all timber sleepers are disappearing. You'll still find hardwood long timbers around, but in terms of softwood, sort of your standard wooden sleeper around the track, that's it. Finito. It's gone. The end. So there you go. So that's exciting. Keep your eyes peeled for that. This Muppet. Billionaire likes things the way they are. Yeah, that's the headline. So I was incredibly disappointed to see an enormous amount of, something you like about Bill Gates, and I don't necessarily hate the guy. He's no Elon Musk, fine, but he is a billionaire, and he has a vested interest in everything staying precisely as it is. He had an unbearably fawning amount of coverage earlier this week on the BBC and on Wired, going on and on about his plan to save the world. Except that it isn't a plan to save the world. It's a plan to basically keep everything the same as it is and hope that technology saves us. Now, where have I heard that before? Oh yeah, gadget bans, Hyperloop, the Loop, all this tech-focused nonsense. And it ended up with a load of people saying, oh, isn't HS2 a tech-focused thing? No, it isn't. HS2 is merely part of... Have you not been listening to all of what I've been saying? No, it absolutely is not. HS2 is about uplifting our existing railway capacity. There's nothing like entirely tech-focused about it. It is merely... The tech is merely adjacent to what it's actually doing. And that's kind of what it's all about. Your solutions to climate change aren't solutions if they are not people-focused. If they're focused around fancy, snazzy tech, particularly fancy, snazzy tech that doesn't exist yet, it is not a solution. It's pie in the sky. Yes, I do need the Soviet anthem drop. Oh man, I need to get drops on the go. The thing is, there's too much going on already. I'd just end up at some point in the future, maybe. Anyway, so basically, stuff that guy. Of course he wants everything to stay the same. He flies everywhere in his blinking private jet. Right, this is fantastic. Right, the National Railway Museum have got a really interesting online exhibit going on at the moment that you should all go and look at. The fantastic Charlotte Kingston, I think, has curated it, and it's got. So I think they're kind of releasing it in stages. So there are 6 people up now at the moment, I think, on the online exhibition, and it's talking about railway heroes. I don't necessarily like the word hero, but the idea here of the exhibition is that it's talking about railway people who have done extraordinary things as part of the pandemic. I think almost all, if not all of them, have ended up going on, coming out the rail industry and going into health-related things. They are awesome photos. It's an awesome exhibition. I strongly recommend going and giving it a look. Just Google National Railway Museum Railway Heroes Exhibition. You'll find it, no problem. But it's fantastic. So big shout out to the National Railway Museum. You're all awesome. Everyone involved in the museum, I just miss it desperately, and I think I love you all, and I look forward to being back at some point soon. In any case, that's that. Oh yeah, people are talking about the fixed link to Northern Ireland again. We've done this though, everyone, haven't we? We've already been here. Episode 33, we covered this, and the fact is that of course it can work. You can make anything work. It's whether it's a good idea or not that's the bigger question. And so, I don't even think this is actually Bojo who proposed this. I think it was they used to be called HS Rail, now they're called something else. The High Speed Rail Group, I think they're called now. They seem to have proposed it, I think, as an idea. I don't think it's necessarily a government thing. Hendy, as part of his State of the Union review, no, that's not what it's called. What is it? Union Connectivity Review, might well be looking at this as well. We'll see. In any case, just watch this episode and you find out everything you need to know. Right, we're there. That's it. The news is done. So we're already 10 minutes in. Don't worry. I'm not doing it again, Matt. I'm just merely pointing out that we've been there before, and people just need to look at that episode if they want the chat. So we're going to talk about the West Yorkshire Combined Authority very briefly. But before we do that, well, actually, wait a minute. Let me just click a thing. Actually, what I need to do is before I even do that, I need to actually say we're live. Wait, watch this. We're on the move now. There we are. Just click that. Just scoop up some people. There we are. Marvelous. Right, let's do this thing. Let's go. So we're going to talk about the West Yorkshire Combined Authority once after the intro credits. All that really remains is for me to sort of say welcome to tonight's Rail Natter. The lovely Intercity fades out. Oh, let's bring that slide back. And in fact, while the music fades out, let's also bring up my miniaturized noggin. Hello everyone. Hello, I'm back. My face has returned. So, so Yeah, don't ask any more questions about the Ireland thing. Go and watch that episode and read the chat in there. There's plenty of good stuff in there. WYCA needs a logo mark, says Richard Smith. Yeah, quite possibly. White Rose, to be honest. Sarah, I think you're right, yeah. In any case, yeah, no, don't worry. I did the sound check to make sure that the intro video worked. Everyone's got their bingos out. Right, let me focus. There's going to be a relaxed one because it's just me again. Oh, yeah, I'm here. I forget I'm in the corner. It's just me again, so kind of a nice relaxed one. Send your questions in. And we don't, we'll kind of cover this in quite a relaxed way. I've got the PDF up, so here it is. I've got the PDF here. Thanks to Ella for converting the PDF from whatever weird sort of online viewer thing it was. To be fair, I should have just used Inspect Element on the old Chrome to pull the PDF out. In any case, I got what I needed. Whoopsie. Yes. So first of all, let's talk about WYCA briefly as a bit of context. So, because it means we talk about kind of more broadly about devolution. So devolution was popular quite recently, and then we voted in the current government, and they hate devolution. So all of the powers that we were seeing, it's relevant to some news articles that are being hinted at the moment, which is that Northern Powerhouse Rail is going to be massively de-scoped and turned into nothing. And that's currently a closed board meeting going on at Transport for the North that, by the way, have all of their board meetings in public. They've made transparency a thing. Transport for the North was a bit of a boys talking shop for a while, and I use that specifically. I say boys talking shop because it was a bit of a male ego thing at the top, a little bit of male empire building. However, a lot of good stuff was going on behind the scenes, and they fell behind in my eyes compared to Midlands Connect, because Midlands Connect really got stuck in and created some fantastic plans that I've yet to see government shred at the moment. But the trouble is, Transport for the North have more on their plate, if you like. There's a lot more to be done across the Pennines, right the way across from Liverpool through across the Pennines over to the East Coast. So more to be done. In any case, so WYCA reappeared. When was it? It was kind of, I think it was proposed in, when was it? Was it 2015 or 2014? Yeah, so I think it was 2014 when WYCA became an actual thing. It was suggested in 2012. It was part of the devolution agenda of the Cameron administrations, and so they started getting a bit of power, much like all the other combined authorities that have started appearing. The point is they're kind of a city-region sort of authority thing that has some powers and some devolved powers and some transport powers. A little bit related to passenger transport executive. We need to get an expert in to talk about the passenger transport executives and how they all tie together. In any case, this is going to have... there is going to be, in May this year, going to be elections for... the West Yorkshire mayor. That's going to be a thing. We'll see how that goes. Is it Brabin who's running for it? No, that's not right. Anyway, I can't remember. In the chat, who's running for mayor? Tell me. Yeah, correct. Yeah, WYCA is basically West Yorkshire Passenger Transport Executive / Authority, but with added functions. Yeah, 2014. Yeah, nice one. Thanks, Lee. Yes. We're gonna. So there are two Rail Natter episodes we're gonna have that'll tie into this. Actually, I think probably the one we've already had we'll cover it in most detail, which is the structure one. So just what structure should Britain's railways have anyway? Kind of covered what an idealised structure would be, and WYCA fits into that. So I'm a fan of WYCA. The existence of WYCA is a good thing. It should have it should have autonomy and control over its sort of passenger transport, particularly in control of the kind of the metro system, the passenger transport executive system, and it should have its own branding associated with that, so people know when they're kind of taking local transit. In any case, that's all there is to say really about WYCA, and it's kind of a bit of a without further ado, let's talk about the report. So that's precisely what I'm going to do. Let's get the report up. So here it is. This is the West Yorkshire Mass Transit Vision 2040. And we're going to go through it. I have no plan. I only briefly... Is Tracy Brabin is running? Yeah. Vote for Tracy Brabin. Come on, let's face it. Wait, is there anyone else who I kind of want people to vote for in those... I'm going to vote Tracy. In any case, I can be political. It's my own show. I don't care. So, West Yorkshire Mass Transit Vision. I'm going to go through this. I've no plan. I'm just going to go through it, and we'll see how far we get through. I'm not going to rush through it. We might not finish it. I'll try and keep on top of time to kind of keep us vaguely to the hour. Anyway, I'm excited because when I did flick through it, I was quite impressed. So, first of all, they're defining mass transit, which is good. So let's see how this is going. I'm going to zoom in. How's the text? For anyone's on their phone, this text is probably a bit small. I'm going to try and keep it. Do I want to keep it page by page? Yeah, I'll try and keep it page by page for now, because it just kind of makes my life a bit easier with kind of scooping through. Andrew Cooper is the Green candidate, but is anti-HS2. Yeah, sack that. Tracy Brabin for the win. Okay, right. So what is mass transit? Well, they're defining mass transit as a large-scale public transport system in a metropolitan area. Yeah. With its own brand and identity, typically mass transit would use one or more of modern high-capacity buses, trams, and tram train vehicles. No. They've erred already, because they've just missed out metro from that, because mass transit includes metro rail, of course. So, they've fallen over already, but never mind. So it is a large-scale public transport system. The metropolitan area is kind of irrelevant. Mass transit is just about moving people around. And they're just talking about the wider plan. They're saying it's alongside cycling and walking. That's important. It's important to see it as part of the wider sustainable transport integration. So that's good. They're also kind of opening with a bit of a bold statement. Mass transit is likely to be expensive to construct. No. Will be expensive to construct, but also deliver substantial benefits to West Yorkshire. It will support levelling up in the Northern Powerhouse. There's going to be a lot of jargon in this, isn't there? Mass transit will. Right, this is important. These bullet points are kind of important because they are what provide an idea of the priorities and kind of the frames of reference, the terms of reference, if you like, for this report. So, Chris, you're right. West Yorkshire Metro is already a thing, yeah, but it's not a metro, is it? It's just a bit of local rail. They're nowhere near metro capacities, as we've talked about. Remember, metro capacity. For me to be comfortable with a thing being called a metro, it needs to have at least 10,000 passengers per hour per direction throughput, and nothing in Leeds has that at all. So remember, by the way, if you want me to spot your comments in the YouTube chat, at me in. All 121 of you watching, hello. At me in, because I appear red and it allows me to spot things. Matt Reed, stop second guessing, we'll get there. We're going through the report. Right, so, help combat climate change. That's number one. Good, I'm glad that's number one. That's important. Connect West Yorkshire's important places. I mean, yeah, that is correct. And I think this will become a major theme in the report. There are only a few places in the UK that have a nice, strong centre, kind of urban centre. Most of the urban areas in the UK, certainly in Britain, are a bit more spread out. So places that come to mind, South Yorkshire, so like Sheffield, Rotherham, that like Barnsley, the East Midlands, that's very much kind of spread around. There isn't one single main urban hub. You've got sort of the Hampshire kind of conurbation, the Scottish Central Belt. These places all are quite... Glasgow, Edinburgh, obviously, are kind of key focus, but even the Scottish Central Belt really operates as one urban system, really, and it's decentralised, and West Yorkshire is certainly one of those. So people say this is the Leeds mass transit system. It isn't. It is the West Yorkshire mass transit system, because Leeds is not... It's not necessarily the place of the most densest kind of population build-up. It is the kind of the urban core of one part of West Yorkshire, but Bradford is pretty densely populated, and actually there are several major urban hubs, and we'll get to some of the maps that explain this point clearly. So let's have a look through. Yeah, mass transit likely to be expensive to construct, but Treasury has left the chat. Yeah, Richard, that's pretty much the situation. So the next thing, connect West Yorkshire's important places. Good. Help rebalance the economy. Not a fan of rebalancing economy because it just means nothing. Improve health and well-being. Yep, that's definitely true. And support economic recovery. Things I'm a little bit annoyed about there are they could just say things like making transport more inclusive, because when you have a car-reliant society, it is not an inclusive society. So that could have been further up the list there. In fact, they should have scrapped the silly help rebalance the economy thing and put something like making West Yorkshire more transport around West Yorkshire more inclusive. Anyway, right, we're on page... I don't know what page we're on because there are no page numbers. So they've given us some nice bullet points. Oh, it's the same thing. By offering a new public transport option which increases capacity and provides an attractive alternative to car travel, mass transit will support and facilitate... Well, they've got some nice pictures, low carbon stuff. Oh, low emission, low carbon, inclusive future. Yeah, good. Okay, inclusive, low emission, low carbon. Because it's not all about carbon. Emissions are horrible in cities. Yeah, so this is good. So they've heard me and have changed the report while I was speaking, which is they've started talking about deprived communities, inclusive growth. Public transport generally serves rich places where it hasn't been developed much. So if you've got a public transport system that hasn't been developed much, London is an exception, but most of the parts of Britain that have so Metrolink maybe is a kind of an example of against that, but in the majority of British cities, public transport hasn't been expanded, and as a result of that, it runs along existing lines, which generally serve richer places. So public transport systems are not very inclusive in this country because they've just not been developed properly. Sustainable development, regeneration of neighbourhoods. Yeah, so it's talking about place. It's really people and places. What transport is all about, people and places. It's about enhancing people's experience of the place they live, allowing them to move around in a more pleasing and pleasant and inclusive manner. Quality of life. Yes, this is good. I like this. It's talking about inclusivity, kind of enhanced quality of life. It's good stuff. There's the thing about economy there as well. Whatever. Oh, what they say. While we're planning for construction to start in the mid-20s, our plans are at an early stage. Yeah, best of luck with that. Here's a nice picture. And it's a picture of a tram with a bicycle and some laughing children. Hooray! Oh, yeah. Artist visualization of mass transit at Leeds HS2. Oh, yeah, nice. So just implying this is utterly connected. Richard Smith, rule of thumb, if no one would outright argue for the opposite, it's not a policy, it's empty rhetoric. Yeah, true. But it's important for setting the frame, kind of the mindset. They could be just talking about the economy and talking about business cases, and they're not. They're talking about inclusivity and kind of things that are actually important. Make West Yorkshire greener, more inclusive and better connected. This is, good. So this is where I get nervous when I see the word advanced. Like, that word is meaningless when it comes to transport. What do you mean by advanced? This is why we propose building a modern world-class public transport system using new forms of advanced mass transit. Uh-oh. Where's the QI klaxon going off? It's going off in my ears. I am worried. Okay, well, let's see. This high-tech, seamless, sustainable mass transit system will connect... Well, okay, yeah, right. Let's see where we're going with this. So, 4 priorities. To boost productivity... here we go. We're slightly erring back towards Treasury frame of kind of terms of reference now. Enable inclusive growth, tackle climate emergency, deliver 21st century transport. Yeah, I'm unnerved now, but they've somehow flipped, and by the time they've said what their 4 priorities are, they've got boost productivity at the top. Our vision for West Yorkshire is to be recognised, blah, 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 whatever. So, okay, so they've got the 4 priorities. They've also got 3 challenges on the next page. So they've said the 3 challenges are COVID-19, connecting everyone, and climate change. Fair enough, yeah, nothing really to argue about that. Right, lots of red atting. So, let me just catch up with some of these atting. So, Liverpool Merseyside is a disparate one as well, Gareth Williams, you're right. It's kind of spread out. Yes, Liverpool's in the middle of it, but actually it includes more stuff than that, Birkenhead and so on. So, there we go. Let me see. Oh, I forgot. I've got lost behind. Gareth was referring to a 3-word, different Gareth, by the way. Gareth Williams. Hi, Gareth. Gareth Unite. Connecting communities, boosting development. Feel that lack of inclusivity of age, ability, income is something people don't even appreciate. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to come to some. I remember spotting something good in this about related to that and related to one of my kind of hills that I like dying on, which we'll get to. Where are we? Sorry, Chris McKenna is saying, serving rich places cause or effect. It's kind of a mixture, really. The places got rich because they had good public transport, and then we haven't changed public transport to keep up with those developments to then serve places that have developed, where people have been displaced, or new places have developed that have lower incomes. We haven't then built public transport to serve those. So, yeah, it's kind of a mixture of the two. TJ of Someplace. Does inclusive growth mean the same in the UK as it does in the US, which is paint a mural but kick everyone out making less than a 6-figure income? No, inclusive growth in the UK, I'd like to think, doesn't mean gentrification, which is kind of what you're referring to, TJ. That tram was very bus-like. Yeah, I know, I got nervous in the picture. Let's see. Graham Harris, glad you said it's not just about low carbon, but air quality in general. Yeah, absolutely. You've got a low NOx, SOx, particulates, rubber, blah, blah, blah. Thankfully the next picture wasn't a monorail. QI klaxon isn't a klaxon. I can't remember what it is, but there's a question in a Steve Fry episode. Yeah, I'm calling it the QI klaxon because everyone knows what it is. English is a common use language, right? Right, where are we? Connecting everyone and a goal and a challenge. Yeah, it's true. They have got connecting everyone as a goal and a challenge. Right, here we go. So this is I like this slide. I like this page, sorry, which I'm going to explain in a minute. What is better oh, here we are. Which is better, the 2005 Leeds Supertram proposal or this new West Yorkshire Mass Transit System proposal? Well, kind of both and neither. The Supertram proposal kind of made sense within the framework of Britain's tentative and pitiful approach to public transport. This is bigger and better. I prefer this if it gets any traction, which it won't because the Treasury still exists. Just going to bookend, not even bookend, I'm just going to put it out there. The likelihood of any of this going ahead is very low with the Treasury still existing as it does now. Just putting it, just saying. It's a siren, horn, alarm, klaxon is a brand name. Thanks, Ella. Yeah, but QI klaxon sounds great. Come on now. Oh, right. Let's talk about this page that is in front of us. I'm vaguely keeping up with the chat. Yes. So this page, for those who are just listening in audio only form, it's a kind of a diagram with two cities next to each other with kind of center to center connections, and then a town and a village with connections as well. They've got a little thing for suburb growth areas, and they're kind of implying how these all interconnect with each other. And I think there's another diagram. Yeah, so they're kind of showing that you're going to rely on things like intercity rail between the cities, local rail to the towns, bus to villages. It's got all kind of sensible stuff about if you like the hierarchy or the hierarchy is probably the best word for it. The hierarchy of different types of transport. So local. So they've also what's important, and it's something that's important about inclusivity, particularly in relation to different travel patterns between men and women, actually, which themselves result from existing kind of prejudices, but this is the reality. Is I'm glad they've talked about kind of you've got radial journeys, but also you've got circumferential journeys. So journeys that aren't like from center to center, but are actually like kind of trips, joining various trips up around the periphery of an urban center, which is something that we don't think about enough in transport. So I quite like that. So they're talking about kind of this type of connectivity. So they're not trying. So this is the reason this is important. I should have put that in as a slide. Actually, the reason that this is important is because you have basically when you think about a public transport system, you need to not be duplicating or replicating existing connectivity that works. You also don't want to be putting the wrong system against the kind of the different types of so the different types of people flow. You don't want to be choosing the wrong system for them. Nodes before modes is the thing that Edward Lee, who was in a previous episode talking about road pricing, from him I got the phrase nodes before modes, and what I mean by that is work out what the system should look like first, as in work out what the network looks like before you decide what mode of transport you're going to pin to each of the nodal interconnectors. So a node being like a blob and a connector being a thing connecting the blobs. So they're talking about so this is where they're talking about walking and cycling being a way to connect between kind of connecting. It's not just it's think about door-to-door connectivity here. So that from your home to work, you're going to be reaching mass transit via some form of active travel, and that's kind of the mode they're aiming for. What's good about this that I'm seeing, so they're talking about micro-mobility, which is good. What they're not talking about anywhere that I've seen so far is stupid autonomous car taxi nonsense. So that's reassuring because it's these are just taxis, and the autonomous vehicles just should not feature in any vision of the future. They're just nonsense. They're just cars, folks. Anyway, right, so that's good. How mass transit addresses our challenges. Okay, so there's this waffly waffle. Yeah, we're waffling now. So they've listed out the stuff they've told us, and they're telling us again, and they're reusing their snazzy graphics, so that's fine. The challenges and how that influences things. Talk about the fact that it's evidence-led. Well, that's reassuring. I mean, you don't really need to... yeah. It's good that it's evidence-based, but everything says it's evidence-based and often lacks evidence for the fact that it's evidence-based. And basically, you can get, when it comes to these sorts of reports at such an early stage, you can get the numbers to say anything you like. So we'll see whether it matches. You can, if you're trying to create business cases that fit the Treasury's funding models, you can basically get them to say what you like based on what knobs and dials you tweak and what inputs you muck around with. How we develop. So this is them describing how they've come up with this plan. Create a single evidence base. Now, what they mean by that, I think, is a thing that I'm currently doing with permanent rail engineering, which is establishing a load of data sets that can talk to each other and are on the same, essentially contained within the same map, basically. I think that's what they're implying there, which is good. Identify the key communities connect, so that's taking that data, interpret it in a way that's standardized, and say where there are gaps and needs. Identify the best transport for local communities. I think 3 and 4, so identify the best transport for local communities, and 4, identify options for improving connectivity. They're kind of the same thing. Again, you've identified the places that need to be connected, now you're going to work out how best to connect them. And then number 5 is where they're talking about sifting options against those objectives, which is fair enough. That kind of seems sensible. So we're kind of getting into the good stuff now. So let me see. It'd be good if I could get 2 pages up. Maybe I should... let me have a think. Just have a little play, because it'd be quite good to have both pages up, because a lot of these are like 2-page situations, aren't they? Yeah, these are kind of 2-page situations. Let me just let me read mode. Is that gonna yeah, possibly. I'm trying to get as much on screen, like maximize as much on screen as possible and have as little else. It'd be nice if I could see if I control L that it just does this single page thing. It's kind of annoying. Wait a minute. If I go to preferences now, let me page display. When I'm doing full page, is it going to let me? No, it's not. Full screen. Yeah. There we go. Now if I do that. There we are. Yes, good. I worked it out. Hooray! Good. So, I knew there was a way, possibly. So this is kind of an implication of what that initial map looks like. So I was talking about this create a single evidence base. This is kind of what they've done here. So you've got, and I like that. I think there is, hopefully there is a version of this map. I think they've got a version of this map in the other document. So there are 2 documents actually a part of this. There's the kind of the spatial analysis, and then there's the thing specifically about mass transit. We're looking just at the mass transit one, but I think this report, this mapping, gets explored in good detail in the other report, which you can go and have a look at and download on the WYCA website. So I don't know if this gets broken down into, if I was through, yeah, I don't think it does. It's just the basis for kind of that underlying map, kind of the underlying sort of data set that enabled them to work out what needs to connect what. But it does give you a good hint of what I was talking about in terms of disparate population centres, because you have 5 major cities in West Yorkshire. I should have given everybody a warning for flicking around. Richard Smith, if you told me in 2019 that one of my favourite YouTube series, Richard, what you old charmer, would involve someone reading a PDF to a live audience, this is what is happening, folks. Yes, so here are the 5 cities. You've got Bradford, you've got Leeds, you've got Wakefield, you've got Huddersfield, you've got Halifax. These are the 5 major urban centres in West Yorkshire. Yes, Leeds has the greatest sprawl, but actually Leeds is formed of lots of towns, and by the time you kind of get into places like, I don't know, Morley or kind of Batley, you're kind of halfway towards the others, so the whole thing is a large urban sprawl. So the reality is these are kind of the 5 urban core, the kind of 5 urban cores, and then there's just urban sprawl spreading around them and connecting lots of them up. And you can sort of see there is a reasonably sensible kind of dotted line that then links to then South Yorkshire. So it is sensible to think of it this way. Sarah Noble points out a lot of West Yorkshire is just rolling suburbia. Yeah, it really is. I've got my friends' parents live up in Cookridge up here. Big shout out to the Cookridge Massive. And yeah, it's just like you cycle. When I've cycled from Cookridge into the city or vice versa, or you get the bus whenever there is one, it's just sprawl. And then whenever I've kind of cycled out the other end, this is all just sprawl and kind of, it's just sprawl, big sprawl. And without any mass transit, I'll point out. So, yeah, so this is quite good. This map, and it's they've pointed out sort of the urban hubs. They've also pointed out kind of priority areas for economic support. So that's kind of the areas that have a bit of a shit time of it economically. Higher propensity for lower income people to live, various deprivation measures, so on and so forth. There's this yellowy patch, which is the spatial priority areas. I have absolutely no idea what those mean, but I presume they're like areas set aside for priority development, possibly because there's former industry there that could be made use of. I don't know, brownfield sites. I suppose that might be what it's referring to. If I look down at between Halifax and Heckmondike and Huddersfield, yeah, you can see that. To me, looks like lots around Brighouse. Looks like lots of former industrial areas that need some love. Pinky areas, environmental resilience. Well, there's not many of those. There's some up. Is that Hebden Bridge? No, that can't be. It's not. It's too. Oh no, maybe it is actually. Yeah, there's some kind of environmental resilience kind of priority areas over on the where will that be? Kind of not Calder Valley. No, that's further north than that. Kind of on the west of the kind of the conurbation. There's some environmental areas, and then they've got various dots referring to like employment growth areas and housing growth areas. Well, yeah, whatever. But these are important. All these data sets overlay each other and allow you to get a feel for where it's a good idea to kind of expand mass transit. And this is the route this is the journey they've gone on to develop what end up being, I think, 9 different lines. Look in the corner for the details on the economic support stuff. Which corner? Yeah, I'm referring to. Yeah. I think that is what I'm referring to. Oh, you can't see my mouse, can you? So that then leads to this development of what looks like quite a complicated map, and I'm glad they've not chickened out from making it a complicated map, because it kind of shows how integrated and how overlaid the system has to be. This map. I did have a PDF of the actual map somewhere, didn't I? Oh, I wonder where I put that. Anyway, I think it gets broken down into further detail later on. So. Here we are. So this is a page. So the previous page was like their plan for regional growth. So talking about what the plans are for spatial development in the city, and then the next page, this double page spread with the nodes and connectors map, if you like, is about mass transit, and as part of an integrated transport system, which is good. So it's talking about mass transit linked to cycling, walking, bus, and rail. So with mass transit sort of sitting above bus, and below sort of local and urban rail. I think that's basically the hierarchy, which is good. I suppose I think the issue I'm going to find with this is that one of the things it does, because of the way that spatial planning works in the UK and how little power the authorities have, the kind of the regional authorities have, and how little government spends on proper public transport, major public transport projects outside of London. One of the things that Leeds would benefit from would be, really high density rail services connecting things like Leeds and Bradford. HS2 is an enabler of that to an extent, but there are still changes that you'd make at a rail level, so perhaps above this sort of the realms of this report. I'm using rabbit ears here. The mass transit, kind of above that, because rail is mass transit. But in any case, yeah, we'll still go with it. That's kind of where it sits. It sits above bus and below rail, basically. So talk about, okay, they've listed, yet again, they've listed all their benefits, which, whatever. But what we're going to do now is, it's more quotes and design principles. Mass transit will be a new form of transport for West Yorkshire. Will be integrated into the urban fabric of every community it serves. Yeah, lovely. Now let me just remind myself. Yeah, okay, good. I was just checking this is the report that I thought it was, because I'm waiting for a page to come up with good stuff in it. It is coming up, which is good. So, a bold ambition for a new West Yorkshire transport mode. Well, it doesn't need to be a new transport mode. It just needs to be building an existing transport mode in West Yorkshire, please, folks. Anyway, this is just a page of waffle and nice pictures with an ice cream van down here. But they're not selling ice cream. They're selling mac and cheese, which, to be fair, I'm at peace with. Yeah, I'll take that. Anyway, so they're talking about these 4 design principles. So this is again, this is kind of important because it's terms of reference. It sort of sets the mindset of what the people creating the report. Basically, these sorts of pages, reading between the jargon, you get a feel for the sort of people who are behind the report, and for me that is important. So when I'm picking up this sort of document, there's a load of waffle in it, and that just basically fades out. For me, it just sort of fuzzes up and I don't see it. What I'm looking for is kind of reading between the lines and picking out the things that I, as an engineer, I suppose, means that there are sensible people underneath it, rather than just, I don't know, I don't know who I'm going to cast within a negative brush here, but rather than just perhaps say local authority people with visions of grandeur rather than delusions of grandeur, perhaps, rather than it being based on a sensible plan. I did it with the Green Party report. I didn't go through that, did I? I need to go through that at some point. If I've got a spare episode, maybe we'll go through the Green Party, go through their proposals and talk about them in detail. That could be quite fun. I've not done enough Scottish stuff recently. Maybe that's one I'll book in. In any case, so let's have a look at these. These are their four design principles. The four design principles being people first, environmental responsibility, better connected, and celebrating West Yorkshire. Well, okay, the last one looks a bit flag wavy, but again, it's about the stuff that's underneath that's important. Those are all jargony terms, but it's the stuff underneath that's important. So let's go to people first, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. So the first bullet point underneath people first is design for people of all ages and abilities, easily accessible low-floor vehicles. Boom. For me, that's good. That's important. It's being written by people who understand what they're talking about, because there's an immediate understanding. Not only have they used the word low-floor vehicles, which is good, but they're understanding the fact that accessibility is critical for any new public transport system. So that's the number one bullet point under people first. That's really good for me. And then they're listing things like multiple doors for quick and easy boarding. Well, yeah. Safe spaces around stops. That is important, actually. They've said it's got to be affordable, easy to use, enjoyable, and stimulating. I don't quite know how you make a mass transit system stimulating, but to be fair, that's the sort of justification for things like art on the underground. So if that means that you have a artwork incorporated into the mass transit, that it's not just a glorified bus stop with nothing on it and then a tram pulls up. If they turn it into a system that has, we just had the episode last week with looking at DC and looking at this absolutely iconic underground stations, just having some passion. That that would be it's important that, so perhaps that's what they mean by stimulating. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt on that one. And they also say reflect the region's diverse communities and cultures. That's been put in by committee. I don't really know what relevance that has to a mass transit system, to be honest. Environmental responsibility. The diversity of communities is important in terms of making sure that, but that kind of comes from ensuring that you're representing all of the areas of, to be honest, that's likely to be ticked off by economic deprivation, in honesty. So kind of less clear on what the point of that. Feels like a committee added bullet point. Environmental responsibility. Zero emission at the point of use. Good-ish. Yes, obviously that's good. An attractive alternative to car travel, yes. Infrastructure resilient to climate change, yeah, that's important. Landscape to promote biodiversity, yeah, well, yeah, grassy tram stuff can be good sometimes. Landscaping to promote biodiversity, air quality, overall health, yeah, fine. And sustainable management of surface water, yeah, okay. So that's talking about not just having concrete everywhere, which actually is an important thing to write down as a design principle, to be honest. Gareth Williams reckons that it's a good idea to short circuit so that passengers are literally stimulated. Yeah, that could work. Free coffee machines on all trams would be stimulating. Yeah. So Gareth Williams, on your thing about North Wales, yeah, I think it is a topic suggestion. Don't worry, we'll get there. Better connected, integrated with local bus services. You'd hope. Yeah, the whole thing has to be connected, but that's a nice political it's a nice sort of sounding aspiration, but that requires political change. That requires all the buses to be brought in-house or at least franchised. So that's and it needs to happen at least in the urban areas. But frankly, all buses across the whole country need to be re-regulated. All buses need to be administered by regional and urban authorities. So it's nice to say, but whether that's a practical reality is another question, really. Connected to local rail services, absolutely, yet independently operated. Okay, it's interesting. That's a very interesting thing you see they've put in. That, to me, tells me that the people who've put this together have a reckoning that they're not going to get proper control of heavy rail transport in the area. So they're saying, at least give us this. They're also talking about the link to HS2 and Northern Passage Rail, of course. I hate Northern Passage Rail as a name. It's absolutely stupid. Cycleways that complement mass transit routes, absolutely. That's good. Park and ride, yeah, park and ride. Cars don't disappear overnight, so you do need to incorporate some of the sort of transitionary public transport things. Yes, so it's an important thing to incorporate park and ride into this sort of thing. A sense of permanence and an ease of use. It's interesting they've talked about the sense of permanence, because this is something that actually Kevin, if Kevin's watching, Dr. Tennant, is the first person who really kind of made me think about. In fact, it was the first pub conversation Dr. David Turner and I had. I'm getting my doctors confused. Dr. DT and I had our first conversation in our first pub in South London. We chatted about the importance of permanence of public transport. I think I've talked about it in previous Rail Natters. Buses don't draw the same modal shift. They don't drive the same shift of away from cars that trams do, and part of that is the sense of permanence of that infrastructure. It is a sense of so having the permanent physical infrastructure there means that there's in your head you're thinking, well, yeah, I can kind of rely on that public transport system to arrive because it's got rails, so nothing's going to kind of get in the way. It's got reliability because there's a regular time to all the things that basically buses do the same thing. Like there's not that much difference between buses and trams from a timetabling perspective, but that sense of permanence is important. And so the fact they've mentioned it reassures me slightly about their advanced word that they used earlier. Richard Smith, permanence equals rails. Yeah, absolutely. And then the celebrating West Yorkshire one, which I'm a bit less like caring, but actually celebrating the built and natural environment. Again, it's an opportunity to do something more than just the bare minimum, which is the normal Britain route when it comes to public transport. Add to and enhance urban spaces, support regeneration. Yep. Respect existing spaces and neighbourhoods, build on their strengths. Yes, absolutely. Build and retain skills. Yeah, I was going to say, this is the bit that I was hoping would be is the most important about celebrating West Yorkshire is the skills. Grow the skills. The people who grow the skills to design, to build, to operate and maintain this thing and keep them. And part of that is by not ending up accepting one poxy line as part of the kind of how the what the system's going to be. Accept only an agreement of the whole system existing, and then have it phased. Don't do the thing where you say, "Oh well, we've been told that we can get one line, and that's the end of that," and then it invariably goes super tram again. Don't. Keep the vision. 9 lines across the whole of West Yorkshire. And then this last stupid thing, which is be a symbol of pride for West Yorkshire. That sort of doesn't need to be written down, to be honest. Right, learning from industry. So this is, what time is it? Right, we're going to blast through this. So this is about skills, I think. They're kind of learning from some of the challenges. Segregation from general... So this is interesting. They kind of undertook some market testing and they came up with some bullet points. Segregation from general traffic is important. Yep, absolutely. Bus, mass transit, rail have to be part of an integrated system. Yep. Preference depends on capacity need. Yep, that's good. Technologies exist for autonomous operation. Uh-oh, the siren's going off. But only in a fully segregated environment. Mass transit systems will require interface with car and or pedestrians, which will continue to need a driver for safety and passenger assistance reasons. So they've written it off. So autonomy, they've gone, oh yeah, it's rubbish. Forget that. Good. Battery technologies are advancing rapidly, and it's realistic to plan for systems without overhead wires. See, which is fair enough. I'm uncomfortable with battery-powered trams because you're adding a load of weight that, for the most part, isn't used, and then it is used for a little bit. I prefer wires everywhere, but it is an enabling technology that kind of solves some problems. So I'm in two minds about it. Obviously, the smaller the section of unelectrified you have, the smaller your batteries can be. So there is a benefit to, it's not just you have batteries, therefore your thing immediately becomes horrible and heavy. It's So this is good. This is something that the Cambridge Autonomous Metro has just miserably failed to do, which is pull its head out of its own arse and actually look to the wider world and ask people, because those, to be fair, are five fairly sensible bullet points. And this leads to one of my favourite pages. It's a page where they're talking about what constitutes a metro or a mass transit system. Also, credit to them for not saying West Yorkshire Metro System. They are saying West Yorkshire Mass Transit, which makes me happy because it means that I don't have to hold them to the metro thing like I had to South Wales. Apologies to anyone who might be listening and gets upset about that. It still shouldn't be called a metro, even though it's it'd be better if it was a South Wales mass transit system and had a branding and blah blah blah. Anyway, right, let's move on. Advanced bus. So they've got 4 different things here, 4 different what they've called candidate technologies for West Yorkshire Mass Transit. I'm going to do them in order of I'm going to do them in the order on the page, frankly. So they've got advanced bus rapid transit, which is a fancy word for saying buses. And it kind of means buses / trolley buses. It's saying potential to be battery or hydrogen powered. So actually what they mean there, if they are looking to just battery or hydrogen power them, these are just buses, folks. They're just buses. So it's talking about the fact that it's low-floored vehicles. It says it's a developing technology. Well, no, buses aren't a developing technology. So that's the advanced bus rapid transit candidate technology, which is just buses, folks. Light rail / tram. So this is saying can run on street, can also be segregated, can be integrated with urban realm green spaces. Steel wheels on steel rails, absolutely. If it ain't got steel wheels on steel rails, it ain't a tram, folks. Low floor vehicles, multiple doors. The good thing about this, so we'll come to this we'll come to the good thing about this page in a second. So they talk about the fact it's got overhead line, doesn't need to be end-to-end if battery or hydrogen powered as well. It's a proven technology, and they give some example cities. Where else? We're going for tram train. So this is sort of saying, yes, it can run on the street, but it also can run on the same tracks as trains, steel on steel. This is where the challenge comes. They acknowledge the fact that this means that they have to have high floor to use existing platforms or low floor but serving new platforms. So there's an acknowledgement of an incompatibility there, which is good. Overhead line again, but can be battery. Yep, fine. Proven technology, but interface with rail can make challenging to implement. There's a realistic acknowledgement there, which is good. And then they list some more cities. And then the last thing is a thing which I obviously need to do an episode on because, ultralight rail, and Richard Smith's already pointed out. So the thing about ultralight rail is saying it can run on street and it can run on segregated alignments, steel on steel. But the key thing, so it's saying, it can have overhead line, but it doesn't need to be from end to end if battery, developing technology, none in the UK. Coventry system is in development. The thing that's important in here, on this page is really good, is they're talking about system capacity. So they're saying, they're realising the fact that the thing that drives the choice here is primarily capacity. If you want to have a high capacity system, then buses and ultralight rail don't cut it. And so it's saying here ultralight rail is 20 to 30 seats, can carry up to 70 in total. And then whereas with tram, it's saying it's got capacity of up to around 200 people. Buses, it's saying capacity of up to around 120. That's kind of optimistic, to be honest. It's usually a bit lower than that. 80 or 90 or sometimes 100 as I've seen for the kind of the fancy buses, if you like. So, isn't Manchester Metrolink technically tram train? Does it share any tracks with heavy rail? I don't know if it does. If it shares tracks with heavy rail, even if it's freight, then it kind of does count. But I can't remember. Does it anywhere? Richard Smith, you're right. The tram train, non-tram train question is an important one for West Yorkshire because of how much rail there is around that you potentially need to incorporate into any system. You're absolutely right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Could you have a rubber-tired tram? No. Uncritical Simon, no, you can't. So the metros in Paris are rubber-tired because Michelin wanted to sell rubber tires to the Paris Metro, and also because their stations were too close together, so they needed to accelerate more quickly than the traction motors and braking systems could deal with at the time with just steel-on-steel traction. It's entirely redundant technology now, and really they should strip all the rubber stuff out of the Paris Metro. It's junk. So, ultralight rail. We'll see where they talk about that shortly. So, some stuff about skilled local labour and delivering and operating it, supporting business growth. Yeah, you can, you source deliver kind of the supply chain. It's good. Helping give an area a buzz is noted against giving buzz. Well, I mean, that sounds kind of trite, but actually... Owen O'Neill, you're right. Manchester Tram don't share with any heavy rail, and they do have entirely separate signalling. That's kind of the defining feature. If the tram system is using, basically, if it's mixed, if it's running with heavy rail, then it's tram train because it has to comply with all the safety features of heavy rail. Anyway, right. Sorry, helping give an area buzz sounds trite, but actually it's not because you go to anyone any businesses along the Borders Railway, and they will describe this feeling, this concept, the idea that suddenly a place is on the map and people are interested in going there because it's railway connected, even if they don't actually use the train. Right, so we're getting into the detail now. So the 2040 West Yorkshire Mass Transit Vision. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lines. Nice rainbow spread of colours there. and you can sort of see the way that it's been overlaid onto our nodes and connectors map, which is good. And we're going to go through each of them in turn. What time is it? It's 19:57. Oh golly, how long is this? So we've got all the lines, and then that's the end. Okay, right. Okay, so we're going to go through all the lines and talk about them. So, the first line is the East Leeds route. So these aren't the names necessarily. These are kind of just the kind of the rough overview names of the route corridors, if you like. But they have thought about them in fairly reasonable detail. So where stations would potentially be, how they'd tie in. They've also, so basically what I'm describing for anyone who's not watching this, these are double page spreads for each line. They talk about kind of the main headline benefits of the line. They give a nice zoom in of what that route might be. They talk about kind of the number of people served by the kind of the area of the city that's served by the line. A bit of a nice description about some of the things that'll happen, and then there's a little line map showing where stations might be, and also kind of one of the key things. There's a description of which mode is associated with this with the route as well, which is good. So, and in some cases I might not agree with these, because for none of these I think bus is a good idea, but it's a transitionary technology that potentially allows a growth of, it's better than regular bus if it's segregated, and it allows passenger growth and a definement of a route, a line of route that can then be upgraded to tram. So I'm in two minds about it. As long as it's not used as an excuse, it potentially enables the whole network to start existing, and then it can be expanded into kind of rail-based systems later. So this is the East Leeds line, so it's connecting kind of from Garforth direction in towards Leeds. So it's going through, so it's like theoretically connecting up with the New Thorpe Park station, going through Crossgates, Hare Hills, the St James Hospital, the Arena, LGI, and then into Leeds Station. Fairly straightforward, and it kind of points out, and what's interesting is it points out the current modal share. So the current public transport modal share along this route is 9%, which is pretty rubbish. And it points out that this route would be potentially suited to bus, or a kind of fancy bus, or light rail. Tram. We're going to call it tram. I need to stop calling it light rail. We're going to call it tram. So fancy bus or tram ideally suit this route, and they talk about some of the connections. So yeah, that seems sensible to me. They've said that it's not. So the reason it's not tram train worthy is because that railway line is too busy. There's too much interregional traffic on the existing railway line. So tram train, there is no viable heavy rail line with capacity. And they say with the capacity it can offer and the opportunity to integrate into regenerated communities and new developments, tram is the leading option. So yep, kind of with them on that. Good stuff. That's the number one. So number two, Bradford to Leeds. Obviously, this is an incredibly busy corridor. Kind of these are the two largest centres of employment in West Yorkshire. Kind of an 8 miles between them. But this is kind of the eternal shame of Britain. Matt Reid, we're probably going to be another 15 minutes. I think it's my guess. 15 minutes more. I'd say that it's a damning indictment of Britain that between two major urban centres within an entirely urbanised environment, the public transport share is 8% in this corridor. That's just pitiful. So this corridor kind of is connecting kind of Bradford. It'll provide a connection between the two Bradford railway stations. Connecting those two with actual heavy rail it might look nice on a map from a distance, but it's not a particularly realistic proposal from a practicality perspective, vertically or operationally. So this is a good way to connect the two. So it goes through is that Laisterdyke, Pudsey, Bramley, Wortley, and into Leeds Station. So it's kind of basically almost a straight line, kind of coming up through whizzing the way through Bramley, kind of through Stanley and Bramley, and then connecting back. So that's nice. And this is saying that they favour tram, even though they list fancy bus, light rail, and tram train as options on here. They say that they favour tram as the leading option. Again, I think it's because the existing heavy rail network is quite well saturated here, and particularly with the unknown. Without the knowledge of what NPR might look like, if NPR is using the existing railway network here, which please, dear God, let it not be, but if it is, then there will be no capacity for things like tram train, let alone kind of increased kind of urban rail services. So that's that corridor. Next, South Leeds to Dewsbury. So again, nice map. Again, very urbanised area. Only 7% of people use public transport to get to work. But what's interesting, actually, in all of these, and this is a statistic that people just continue to forget about, people with a conservative mindset believe that poor people drive, which is just nonsense, because all of these, so the first route, 41% of households don't have access to a car or van. Bradford Leeds, 42% of households don't have access to a car or van. And then South Leeds, when you get to South Leeds, that changes. 35% of households don't have access to a car or van. So, you're talking about around 40% of people not having access to a car, which means that they just don't have access. They're relying on the bus system, which is crap in and around West Yorkshire. So, yeah, quite interesting. I'm glad they've put that there. I think it's a really critical statistic to include. So, I like this report. Just to put it out there, I really like this report. It's good. Owen O'Neill is saying, surely ultralight rail can offer just the same capacity as tram. No, it can't. You can't string them together in the same way because that requires additional strength to have things like couplers, which add mass. So it stops being ULR as soon as you have things like couplers, so that it exists only as a little pod. So I need to have the people from Coventry in to talk about it, but yes. In any case, so no, ULR is low capacity. It's not the same as tram. It's not a replacement for tram. It's like a gateway drug to trams. ULR. It's not a replacement for trams. So so the South Leeds to Dewsbury. This is connecting up from what's the way to describe this route? Let me have a think. Yeah, so kind of like via the White. So they're sort of talking about two potential routes here actually, like going via Ellen Road and the White Rose Centre, down through Morley, Batley, and to Dewsbury, but also like a park and ride at Tingley on the M62, and kind of going via Hunslet and kind of that side, so in the direction of, but not reaching Castleford and around that way, and then coming down to Dewsbury. That's again, yeah. So it's talking about major park and ride. That's quite a good M62 park and ride. That seems sensible to me because lots of people do drive from further afield into Leeds. So if they've got a park and ride, they can then get into the city centre. That's a good thing. Again, yeah, capacity. Again, you see the capacity here. They're saying tram is the chosen option here, even though they've put fancy bus, ultralight rail, and tram on here. So you see a pattern emerging here that basically tram is the only thing that's really providing the capacity. So that was South Leeds, Dewsbury. Now we're looking at Bradford, Dewsbury. Only 5% of people use public transport to get to work, and probably these to indicate increased levels of. South Leeds and kind of, these parts potentially are including areas of slightly increased incomes. That probably explains the reduction in the number of households that don't have access to a car or van, because it's only 33% of households that don't have access to a car or van on this corridor. Again, the numbers are rubbish though. So this is connecting through Bradford, kind of probably using the same route, Bradford Forces Square to the city centre. So this is interestingly, this assumes that Northern Powerhouse Rail will have a city centre station. It's worth noting that. Actually, does the other Bradford one do that as well? Yeah, it does. It does say Bradford City Centre. So whether that's a renaming of interchange... Anyway, yeah, it's interesting to observe that. Just always interesting what you can see shakes out the tree with these. Ian Davis is saying, Middleton looks like it had a tram based on the width of the roads here. Yeah, I can probably believe that, yeah. Cleckheaton line, says Sarah. Oh, thanks, Sarah. Sarah, I've been missing your chat. Remember to at me, because I've not been seeing much of you recently. You've been doing some Crane Easting as well. Anyway, I hope you're well, Sarah. I hope I'm covering this with due diligence and due geographical accuracy as well. Anyway, so that's going Bradford, down through South Bradford, through Holmwood, Lowmore, where there's the station. Another park and ride, Chain Bar park and ride on the M62 proposed. Through Cleckheaton, Heckman Dyke, and into Batley and Dewsbury. So yeah, kind of almost going directly, well, kind of southwest. Yeah, that direction. Yeah, again, this is an interesting one. So they're saying the opportunities that ULR, ultralight rail or tram are options for this route. So that's kind of interesting. Not quite sure why they're choosing to go for, why they're saying ULR is particularly viable here over and isn't on the others. Presumably because they foresee it as being less demand, driving less demand. Anyway, so Huddersfield, Dewsbury. this is so interestingly. So this route runs from Huddersfield through Bracknell, Bradley, and then Mirfield, and then into Dewsbury, kind of northeast-ish. Oh, I said southeast. I should have said the last time. Anyway, Huddersfield, Dewsbury. 33% of households don't have access to car or van. Interestingly, they don't quote how many people use public transport on this one, which is kind of annoying because I like stat consistency. Anyway, I'm shaking my fist at the report people. Ella is asking, with the car thing, the biggest barrier to poorer people owning them is the cost of running the darn thing, right? A mixture of cost of running it, places to store it, because areas of lower, areas where you've got deprivation, either, or kind of lower income areas, either you've got to pay for parking, you can't afford that, or there is no space for parking. But primarily it's the cost of buying, owning, running a car. It's prohibitive for large numbers of people. It's just assumed that it isn't because people's privileged frame of reference who are in power, they just see it very differently. They see a car as a default thing. What else? Where was I? Oh, wittering on. So this one's interesting. The Huddersfield Dewsbury, they say the choice of technology would need to consider likely demand revenue and benefits as well as implementation costs. They haven't committed to any choice. They've broadly said that fancy bus, tram or ultralight rail works, but they've not... Again, this is on a railway corridor, so tram train isn't suitable because that railway corridor is too busy. These are the anything where TransPennine runs, basically. If TransPennine Express run on the line, then it isn't happening. Sarah Noble's pointing out the big problem, TM, with this one is the A62 A644 junction at Cooper Bridge, which is a mess, but there's plenty of land to expand out. Interesting. Okay, yeah. So there's a real challenge. So there's some geographical challenges on this to be overcome on this particular route. Is that possibly a contributor to why they've not really decided how they're going to achieve it? Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Bradford Halifax. Well, what number are we on now? That was... right, we're on number 6. Bradford Halifax. So, sorry for the flashing pages there. I hope it's not too flashy for anyone who's photosensitive. Again, they've dropped the stats about public transport usage on this one, which is kind of annoying. But the numbers have reduced again, possibly because of affluence in the area. 30% of households don't have access to car or van. This route is, well, this is a bit of an all sorts, this, because it's kind of a bit of a loop in and around, like through Halifax and over towards Bradford, but then tying down and connecting into like the kind of the parallel to the railway through like Mirfield, Ravensthorpe and Dewsbury. And here they have looked at the possibility of tram train. Again, they're kind of agnostic as to the options, but they're talking about reusing the disused Queensbury railway tunnel, which is quite interesting as well. But they're talking about bus rapid transit, light kind of tram, light rail, ultralight rail, and tram train being viable options. So all of the 4 kind of candidate technologies, as they call them, they think could be viable here. So yeah, that's it's an interesting one. This is it's not so much a route, but just sort of a blob of mass transit serving quite a nebulous kind of little urban area. Richard's pointing out that people in power usually live around the home counties, which just rely on cars desperately. Yep. What people say? Josh likes Cola saying it's much harder and more expensive to pass the test. That's not true. It's much easier to pass the test nowadays. Drivers these days are much worse. But to be fair, that's not necessarily people who've recently passed. A lot of those people will be people who passed ages ago and have no interest. Katie Fenn. Lived in Sheffield city centre for 8 years, having a parking space, would have added a chunk to monthly rent and didn't need it. Didn't want a house share. Yeah, absolutely, Katie. That's I think people forget about the cost of parking in a lot of urban areas, and we don't all have the ability to just park on our drives. Yes, and even then, there's not a lot of room to park on the street when you're house sharing. Yeah, a lot of places around Leeds have like large house shares, where you've got 7 people maybe living in a large big sort of house thing, and there's no space for, not every one of those people can have a car, so it's just not viable. Insurance is very expensive for young people as well, absolutely. Right, Sarah's saying that she can tell me right now that the South Halifax part is going to be a headache because of the 11% gradient just outside of Calderdale Royal. No doubt, but yeah, 1 in 10 is viable for trams. It's not the end of the world. Yes, so Sarah reckons probably going to follow the current rail line. Yeah, it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to think about whether they expand rail corridor, do things like sheet piling and just expanding the width of the rail corridor. I don't see it. Never see why that's too much of an issue. So long as it involves getting close and personal with the railway. But if we're going to have an integrated transport system, why not do some clever things like that? Anyway, Simon's biggest frustration with the car poor people thing is the perception of public transport being crap or expensive, whilst car running costs are often forgotten and also expensive. Absolutely. Owen O'Neill is pointing out that we need to kick Highways England out of the Queensbury Tunnel. Yeah, there's some more going on there than meets the eye at Queensbury Tunnel. It's not quite just the case of HE being the baddies in this one. I think there's a few different people from different quarters pulling a few different other people's legs on that one. Halifax Bradford, or Bradford Halifax, should I say? That's our big loop, mixed all sorts. Let's look at Wakefield and 5 towns. So that's Wakey plus what are the 5 towns there? Is it Castleford, Normanton, Featherstone, Pontefract, and Nottingley? Is that the 5? I presume it is. Or are they talking about Woodlesford? It's kind of hard to tell. Where are they actually going? Let me have a look. So this route, again, this is a bit of a nebulous route, this one. And again, they're talking about the fact they're not sure which option works. So it's going from Wakey out past the hospital to heading up through Woodlesford towards Leeds. So Hunslet, Leeds, so kind of following the railway there. A railway that will have HS2 next to it for quite a lot of its length, and then going the other direction down through Castleford, Normanton, all the kind of the mining towns around there. If you drive around there, the roads are huge and too big and wide because they were all upgraded to carry extra coal traffic, like coal HGV traffic. It's a very weird part of the world around there. The roads are huge and strange. Penistone, Ella, is south of Huddersfield. It's further over. So, yeah, so that's kind of a bit of a weird figure of 8 with it kind of looks like a little symbol. It's all very strange. But they're basically saying options to be developed. There are a lot of options of things they'd like to do connectivity-wise there. So that's Wakefield and 5 towns. The 5 towns they've just listed are Hunslet, Belle-Isle, Cross Green, Rothwell, and Woodlesford. Oh. That's a sort of a strange list of... Anyway, I thought it'd be more the main urban hubs, but no, it's not. Those are the 5 towns. Oh, no, sorry, I'm wrong. The City of Wake is an important commercial centre. The 5 towns are Pontefract, Castleford, Normanton, Nottingley, Featherstone. Yeah, okay, that makes more sense. I'm there. I'm less confused now. So, yeah, Penistone's in South Yorkshire, not in West Yorkshire. Right, next one. So again, they're not sure what's going on for this one. Right, Bradford and North West Leeds. So this is heading in... this is kind of heading from like Bradford... Shipley, kind of Belden, Guiseley, Otley, and the airport. That vague sort of direction, that kind of running kind of southwest northeast direction. So kind of connecting up the NPR city centre station up, going towards potentially Apperley Bridge into to the airport, or going up towards Guiseley and Otley in that direction. And they've written off ultralight rail. They've pointed out as an option for this one. Oh, by the way, so we've had Bradford Halifax was 30% without a car, 31% was Wakefield 5 towns without access to a car or van. I think that's probably partly of the slightly sort of suburban / semi-rural nature of the kind of the space between these places. But we jump to Bradford and North West Leeds, which is much better off. It drops down to 24% of households that don't have access to a car or van, which is interesting. However, at the same time, nearly 30% of the people in this area live within the 20% most deprived communities in England. So there's quite the contrast going on there. Really quite interesting. They assume a railway station at the airport as done. Yeah, there is going to be the Parkway station, and I think whether they then... how that ends up manifesting itself, whether whatever they propose here goes through the Parkway and then up the hill, or whether they assume that the railway is going to do a weird shooty up underground thing, I don't know. The station is planned there. How that then there is a Parkway station plan, but in terms of how it actually connects with the airport, which by the way is on a massive hill, if anyone wasn't sure, that remains to be seen. Right, so what they comment on choosing their mode here is the interface with the rail network means that tram train is the leading option for the western option of this route. Topography means that fancy bus appears more appropriate for the eastern option. So basically, they're saying if you go through like Shipley, Guiseley, and towards Otley, you're going to go for tram train. If you go up to Leeds Bradford Airport, you're getting a fancy bus. So make of that what you will. Right, North Leeds. This is the last, number 9, the last bit, the last option, the last route corridor, if you like. And this, 9% of people using public transport within this kind of area. 31% of households not having access to car or van. This covers a lot, so this covers like across from, this covers a lot of quite well-off areas as well as some less well-off areas. So this is a connection up to Leeds Bradford Airport through, going up through sort of Kirkstall and Horsforth and up to Leeds Bradford, but also going the other direction up through LGI, the hospital that is, past the arena, St James's Hospital, and out to East Leeds Parkway, to East Leeds Park and Ride, and then potentially going up to Chapel Allerton. I was going to say, Chapel Allerton has felt a bit underserved throughout all of this, which is interesting. Wait a minute, what? Yeah, have we got the big map? Yeah, there's not much that goes up in that direction, is there, actually? There's a distinct lack of service going up to Chapel Allerton, which is interesting. We talk about providing a service to some of the more ethnically diverse parts of the city, and yet Chapel Allerton, well, it has a line here, but whether that's an option rather than a dedicated line, I don't know. It's kind of interesting. Again, they've said that tram is basically the leading option for whatever this ends up looking like. I don't know. There's not much to say on this one. The railways are too busy / don't exist. You could maybe use some tram train on the line, kind of going through Horsforth, kind of going through Headingley and Horsforth in that direction. But that then undermines the frequency of the Huddersfield, the Harrogate service. So mixed feelings on that. Yeah, this one, which is why they've said sort of tram is the leading option. So I think it's fair enough. I've already run on 20 minutes. I'm so sorry, everyone. Anyway, so right, this is the interesting thing. So that was all the lines. I don't know how useful that all was. I kind of agree that Leeds Bradford Airport is stupid, and the best thing to do is actually to close it. But you'll never get that happening because of local people, the kind of local authority people's egos. They'll never want that to happen. Accelerating delivery of mass transit. So they talk about funding. The government is committing to a 5-year integrated transport settlement with WYCA starting from, this is the stupid thing, everyone talks about the £4.2 billion available, but that money is not for WYCA, it's from a big pot of local authorities can spend from this, which is just how backwards Britain is. It's like, no, this is a mass transit system that's clearly a good idea and necessary, just fund it. Just fund it. Fund it. It justifies its existence, therefore it justifies the guilt to pay for it. Fund it. Don't make local authorities battle each other to compete for one pot of money. All of these places need mass transit. All of their mass transit systems justify being funded. What time period that funding comes on can be discussed. But don't make them compete for a blinking pot of money. It's pitiful. This country's a joke. Anyway, so they're saying that our ability to truly accelerate the delivery of these ambitious proposals is subject to long-term certainty over funding and the strength of the business case. We set out in this document our ambitious plans and look forward to working in partnership with central government to deliver them. Well, that's where it all falls down, you see, I'm afraid. So if we go to the top, you can see there's the kind of bit of a timeline, and they talk about phases 1, 2, and 3. So there's kind of a hierarchy of what's going to get delivered when. So phase 1 is looking at like Bradford, Leeds, up through to East Leeds, Park and Ride, down to Dewsbury. That's phase 1. Phase 2 is looking at, kind of Rounday, Horsforth, round up to the airport, heading down towards five towns and down to Huddersfield. Phase 3, I can't actually tell if it's on the map. I don't know if they've actually really decided where phase 3 is. In any case, you can see it's kind of a staged approach. So on that little timeline at the top corner, you talk about like focusing on COVID and focus on recovery from COVID-19 and Brexit. Isn't it funny that we just, without any questioning, people are talking about recovery from Brexit? Look at that. Wonderful. I thought it was all going to be sunlit uplands. Anyway, Yeah, so this also says when the OBR are expecting the economy to return to pre-COVID levels. So that's kind of 2024. 2025 is kind of when a lot of the Transforming Cities Fund money is going to be spent on bus, walking, and cycling schemes. Then they're talking about TRU being delivered, transparent route upgrade being delivered kind of between 25 and 30. NPR starts being delivered just before 2030. That's what they reckon. And then the net carbon zero happening by 2037 is what they've put here by the look of it. 2030 between 2035 and 2040, and then they're saying 2040 HS2 arrives in West Yorkshire, which is a depressingly delayed state of affairs, isn't it? What a damning indictment of our central government's interest in investing in this country, frankly. Anyway, so that's the sort of timeline, but all of it relies on government getting involved, and government has no interest in getting involved at all. So there we go. That's it. That's the end. That is indeed there's the final page. There is just telling you what. Oh, the point they're saying is have we understood the challenges and issues faced? Are we connecting the right places? Have we identified the right mass transit technologies? Our engagement begins in January 21 and runs to the 11th of April 21. Go and get involved, everyone. Get involved. But most importantly, write to your MPs. Again, the thing that makes central government notice is when there's MPs getting angry letters and emails from people saying, sort your shit out. Anyway, there we go. Let's whiz back here. It's just a picture of the West Yorkshire Combined Authority. Let's bring my massive face back. We're there. We are there. There were some questions coming through. Hopefully I'll answer most of them. What happens next? Very little. Government will do some weasel words and we'll see it all. Lots of nice sort of sounding sound bites from local government, and as we've seen by the current government, they're just uninterested in any sort of local solutions. They're wanting to bring everything back to London, back to Westminster, and control it all from there. And as a result of that, they're not interested in locally driven solutions. So what will probably happen is that this will get kicked into touch. Central government will come up with its own sort of half-baked, half version of this. They'll then attempt to get funding from Treasury. That'll then get pulled or delayed or altered or whatever, and we'll just see we'll just see this get kicked into touch. That's the reality of what will happen if nothing changes. If, however, you want things to change, vote the current lot out at the earliest possible opportunity you have, and vote for basically anyone else, but ideally vote for the person who's most likely to result in your Tory MP getting the boot. Vote tactically is all I can say when they next have the opportunity to. Richard Smith is right. What happens is government will ask for a new version of this when they say everything's changed in a few years, and it'll just keep kicking into touch, and more money gets wasted on consultants, and more money gets wasted by poor local authorities in trying to spend. The cycle of waste of new report. None of these things changed. Those routes are the same ones that have needed to be served for decades. Just get on with it. Anyway, but the reason I'm saying this in an irate way is to encourage you to write to your MPs and express that the same way. Andrew Thompson, this May, absolutely. This May is the time. Oh, right. Thanks for listening to this, folks who did so in audio version only. I hope that was reasonably well described. I bounced around a bit a lot. I know the people in other Discord servers and mine moaning about the fact that I bounce around like I have ADD. It's because I do. But it's interactive. The whole point is that it's live and interactive and good fun. So listen in audio format, thanks. What next? What's the next thing I'm going to say? I do have announcements related to this, actually. Patreon. I've changed currency on the Patreon from euros to pounds because it makes my tax number. When I did my I had to do my first self-assessment in relation to this. And it made the money a bit more nightmarish. It was a good gag, and I was pleased at the idea of having it within euros. But actually, I needed to. I need to change to pounds to make billing a bit more easy. So hopefully that might make some of your billing a bit more straightforward too. For those of you based in the UK. For those of you based in the US, it'll make no difference, I'd imagine. And for those of you in Europe who Patreon me cash, it's probably made your lives a bit. I don't think anything's actually changed for current Patreons. So, well, if you've got any problems, just message me, basically, and I'll try and work it out. The Discord server is a thing. It's chaos. People will shout about their bingo results in chaos chat afterwards, I'm sure. And PayPal, if you don't fancy all the fuss of Patreon or any of that, and you just want to throw me loose change on PayPal, you can. It'll mean that it'll add into the kitty. It'll make my tax returns more complicated, but it'll mean that I can sort of justify my time doing these. Because it's, the more time I can spend doing these, the better they get. Don't laugh. Don't laugh. Ah, yeah. Branchline banter. I was on the latest episode and it was a lot of fun. I murdered Johnny through the art of double entendre. I sighed and made grunt noises as Ella teased me and trolled me using words like hyperloop. And generally it was good fun. It's very long. But that's kind of nice. It's kind of nice to listen to in the background, and you realise you missed a bit, and then you skip back by 10 minutes, and then you borrow a couple minutes, and then you listen again. It's good. It was really good. I'd recommend it. It was very good fun. Go and have a listen to it. It's available on all of the same podcasting platforms that I've previously mentioned for Railnetter. Branchline banter. There we go. What else? What else is the thing? Oh yeah. Tim. Go and watch Tim on yesterday. It was the last episode was a really good one. Some fantastic Leipzig, the underground, the kind of the cross city line under Leipzig is just, yeah. I mean, Birmingham needs that, by the way, as does Manchester. It needs a proper underground cross city line with proper massive epic stations underneath. Anyway, it was a really good episode, and had some lovely stuff from North Devon, which is where half my family are from. So it's my kind of my roots. Oh dear, it's an hour and a half already. 1 hour 26 this has been going on for. I'm so sorry. Right. I made people. Lots of people saying that the podcast made them laugh. Good, I'm glad. Well, that's nice. Next, John Morgan Christoph is joining us, I think. Is John in the chat? I don't know if John's in the chat. I think he watches these later or listens to them. John is joining us to talk about space shuttle rocket boosters. You might be thinking, what? But this is in relation to the to that stupid thread that went viral. The first time Permanent Way went viral on the Twitter, and I was moving house, so I couldn't get involved in the fun and tell people they're all fools for sharing it and thinking it's a good idea, because it's utter nonsense. But this episode is going to be all about that, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be good. Right, let's bring my big old mug back, shall we? Let me do... Yes, so... That's it. We're done. 1 hour, 27 minutes. Thanks for joining. I hopefully got through most of your queries and questions and thoughts. Dave Cardboard, am I planning one of these on Warrington? It got no media coverage, so presumably it all went well. Oh, good point. Yeah, it got no media coverage, which I think means that they finished driving the box. I need to go and check the East Coast Upgrade Twitter account, actually. They usually post good pictures on there. That's where to go for all the updates. We do need to get a Warrington Dive Under chat. Actually, I know the PM on the King's Cross remodelling. I need to speak to her and get her on to talk about King's Uncrossed as well. In any case, That was a fun episode, actually. I enjoyed that. I always love a PDF page turn episode. Anyway, all 123 of you, you're all wonderful, and I will see you next week for more of this, if not on Friday for streams or whatever happens. Anyway, take care of yourselves. Cheerio! Cheerio!